Thank you, Mr. Brara, for introducing me and inviting me to speak. Good morning to all of you. Mine happens to be the first presentation, and it's a very generic presentation about smart cities and the trends and what the outlook is like. Well, now let me take you and give you an eagle perspective. Smart cities cannot be evaluated or judged from a narrow perspective. We need to really understand the context, and let's understand what's happening globally. As we know that there is a global trend, and urbanization, industrialization, motorization are perhaps the key drivers for change around the world. And what you're seeing here is the global trend, the urban millennium. I mean, I'm sure you would have heard thousands of people saying the same thing over and over again, but unfortunately, that is the one that sets the background for our discussion today. So almost 50% of the world's population lives in cities today, and of course what you see, the circles that I put there, that's where maximum urbanization is taking place. Several times people also fail to understand why urbanization is important. That's because urbanization is inextricably linked to economic development. And that's the reason why any country that is urbanized has economically progressed, and India is fortunately going through that wind now. Now globally, we have to understand that most of the countries are going through new configurations. This is again a meta and a mega perspective that we need to have. World over, most of the countries are going through country-specific transitions. Now take a look at what's happening in India. India is going through urban transition, which means there's a huge migration from rural India to the urban areas, and today we have something like 350 million living in India. The entire population of United States is living in our cities today, and the projection is going to be 600 million very soon. There's a demographic transition. Friends, for most of you who've been reading about the economic profile of India, we realize that the birth rate and the death rate have stabilized in India, which means that we will have a population that is young and ready for work. There's an economic transition in India which is very, very significant. Today, Indian economy has moved away from agrarian economy to the tertiary or the knowledge-based economy. If you go back and check in the 1950s, 52% of the gross domestic product was contributed by agriculture. Today, agriculture contributes a meager 13.5%. 29% comes from industry, and a whopping 56% comes from services. So obviously people are migrating more and more towards cities. There's a health transition, my friends, very interesting to realize that Indian health profile is changing dramatically. And at a later time, perhaps you will understand why I'm giving the transitions, because it has a relationship to cities, and again, it has implications on the smart cities. The health transition that India is going through is we have started moving away from infectious diseases towards what we call as NCDs, non-communicable diseases like cardiovascular disease, diabetes mellitus, and cancer. This, again, as I said, has a great implication on urbanization and also the aspiration to go smart. And the most important transition that I have not listed here that India has experienced and is going to really see the impact is the leadership transition. We have a new government in place, and without which I don't think we will really be seeing smart cities in large numbers. Well, there are new equations around the world. If you see that India at one time was compared to the Asian tiger economies like Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, etc. But today, India has attained a new profile. We're being compared to TIPS, Thailand, Indonesia, and Philippines, primarily because the kind of economic agility they are demonstrating, India is also demonstrating. The new equations like United States and India are kind of, economic profiles are not same, but there is a similarity in our health profiles. US has a lot of non-communicable diseases like, again, cardiovascular diseases I mentioned just now, cancer and diabetes. India's got the same. Now take a look at Rwanda and China. Economic profiles, I don't think there's anything common there, but there is a commonality that both the economies are growing at the same percentage rate, 8%. That's because Rwanda has started looking at its asset profiling. They've understood a new asset class exists, and that is women, and they started really, surging ahead. So a lot of things that are happening at a global level that might have implication on how we're going to shape our cities. Well, the largest mind shares is obviously occupied by cities. And India, as I said, is no exception. We've just sprouted too many cities in the past, and now we are continuing to do so. The most important slide is this. The reason why we are here, I could call it the raison d'etre, why we are here is because of this schizophrenic configuration of cities that most countries are experiencing. There's extreme poverty juxtaposed by extreme prosperity. And world over, it is seen now that smart cities is an answer to that schizophrenia problem the world is experiencing. So smart cities now gets an elite position in the perspective of the world leaders. Now, there have been predictions saying that over 40 global cities will be smart cities in 2020, a whole lot of predictions about what Asia is going to look like, what the Americas are going to look like. You see the investments are very high, and in India, the projected investment rate is something to the tune of 2.58 trillion. There are different types of projections on what would be smart homes and smart healthcare, etc. But friends, what is important to know is that a mere policy decision by one political leader who has interest in creating smart cities will change the predictions all over again. And again, I'm speaking from India perspective. This is happening in China, this is happening in Japan, this is happening in all parts of the world. So the predictions have again taken a new shape and perhaps have to be reworked, because soon after those predictions came, our government announced 100 smart cities. So obviously the investments are going to be much higher because there is an intent today. So as said by Mr. Brar, it has been announced in the union budget, 7,000 crores. Now this is actually a very small amount, but this small amount is going to be utilized to develop proposals for smart cities for each of the 100 cities. So that's all it's going to do. Then of course we have different funds, how we're going to get that into place. Now drivers of smart cities, I think as all of you know, it's urbanization, it's stress, inadequate infrastructure, economic competition that's happening all over, expectations, environmental challenges, and most importantly, the last two ones, rapidly improving technology capabilities. Huge amount of, we have technology stalwarts sitting amongst you. You yourselves know how your companies have transitioned, have developed, better and better technologies. And most importantly, the declining costs of technologies. These are the biggest drivers today of smart cities. Now let me come to the most interesting part, the trends in smart city landscape, and why my presentation perhaps sets the tone for future businesses. Well, historically, smart cities were new cities. When the whole concept of smart cities happened, everybody thought of, let's build a smart city ground up, new cities. But today, world over, it is smart retrofits. If you see examples like Songdo and so many in China and New Zealand, a friend of mine is working, Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, they're all just cities that have been planned, ground up. But now it is smart retrofits. So obviously your technologies will change, your approach will change, and your investments will change. Well, look at the changing landscape. First of all, I think globally, everybody is trying to get the definition right. In fact, Government of India, the Ministry itself has had several discussions with some of us on trying to understand what is a smart city. There is a maturing market, my friends. It's really interesting to see that when initially smart cities took off, it was vendor frenzy. There were technology vendors who created a huge hype and actually drove the smart city market, but today it is moved from supply side frenzy to demand side interest. Today, what's interesting is, again, we find vendor competition to vendor collaboration. This is another very interesting thing. You cannot get or penetrate into markets unless you learn to collaborate with your players. Optimization of resources. So legacy investments are being preserved in all parts of the world. There's real discussions in most parts of the world on how they have to preserve the legacy investments. And therefore, the rip and replace formula that most technology players have been used to, it doesn't work anymore. There's open data. India, a place where we never understood open data is important, has actually resonated to this, and we have thrown open our data, public data. And that happened last year and is continuing to happen. So obviously people can really take and make use of the data. Innovative financing models, I think we have my next speaker who's going to perhaps speak about that. Well, smart city protocols and frameworks. Friends, such an interesting thing. Earlier, smart city frameworks have historically come from cities themselves, and then they restricted that to their own cities. But take a look at Barcelona. What it is developing today is meant to be used around the world. So some of the cities are taking leadership in creating frameworks and offering it free to the world. Such a great stewardship, I might say. Then you have the most important thing, that's another thing that's happening, is country-specific plans and programs. Again, if you go back and check in the past, it was just individual cities that had plans to become smart, but today they have become national programs. Government of Japan has a national program. China has a national program. And you've seen that India has a national program. So obviously something has started, on the sidelines, got into the mainstream of the national program. And that is the maturity that the market is experiencing today. Amazing. So whatever I have said, I will reiterate again. Now, take a look at this. Historically, the markets have been littered with a lot of options. But the governments decided that there could be so many vendors out there, but this is what we need for our city. So the definition, the demand side requirement is being articulated very well by cities today. They say that we want to create jobs, we want to create effectiveness, we want to be competitive. They are defining and then going out to choose the vendors, which is a great transition, I must say. Then they're getting their definition right, especially in the form of sustainability and smartness are together. Most of the countries around the world have started believing that they are like conjoined twins. They are together. So that's the reason why they're talking about people, planet, and profit together. Now take a look at this. This is the Control and Command Center of Rio de Janeiro. This is considered to be, though, I think Verint is giving its presentation. Prima facie, this looks like too much of technology, but I was told that the data, the real-time data that they get on this huge video wall of 80 feet, that perhaps even puts NASA's video wall to shame, I was told solves problems of molestation and rape, crime, all of them happening in squatter settlements. So now smart cities is being seen as an instrument of inclusion. Amazing transition from earlier perception of smart cities are just technology heavy, but here they are being seen as instruments of inclusion. Fantastic transition. Another very interesting thing that you will see, this slide is of course the most interesting one, that I don't know how clear that is. Yeah, it is clear. If you see the coordinates, you have visibility and maturity. On the initially when smart cities started, there's a huge amount of visibility, and then it started sliding. So triggered by technology, there was huge amount of hype, and then it started sliding. So obviously there was a trough of disillusionment, and now there's a slope of enlightenment, and it's kind of, there's a plateau of productivity. This is where we are. So obviously there's more promise now because the markets are mature, the governments are mature, and the technology providers have learned their lessons too. So as I said earlier, there's convergence of players. Not too many players, each one claiming to do end-to-end solutions. They are converging and giving solutions that really make a lot of difference. Fantastic. Now take a look at some of the countries. What they have done is they have created their own groups. For instance, in Amsterdam, they have taken a bunch of technology providers, and they have also chosen multiple domestic partners. Friends, this is another critical thing to really take into cognizance around the world. There's a big learning that if you don't have domestic partners, you're not going to move towards any smartness. And this is a big learning, and Amsterdam is showing the way. As I mentioned, global framework, Barcelona is setting for the entire world. National governments are creating more and more opportunities. And now you also see on the international landscape, new clusters of collaboration and competition. Today there's huge amount of rating that's happening in terms of what are the cities that have talent and tolerance, etc. So there's a lot of collaboration that's happening, there's a lot of competition that's happening. The most important thing is this: what the world is today trying to do is not to reinvent the wheel. This bunch of countries that you're seeing account for almost 60% of the road accidents and deaths thereof. And these countries are collaborating to find better protocols for traffic safety and mitigating death on the roads. So a new way of working has evolved, and thanks to smart cities, where it triggered a lot of collaboration, a lot of analysis and deep sensing in terms of how do we change things. Now parallelly, another very, very interesting thing is happening thanks to smart cities again. There's this whole movement of intelligent communities, parallel movement is happening. Several times people ask me what is the difference between a smart city and an intelligent community. A smart city is a collective bunch of small intelligent communities inside. I can give a lot of examples. Let's take this, maybe a Hsinchu city in Taiwan. They have fantastic collaborative platforms where entrepreneurs, artists come together and create economic vitality. Now take a look at Soho District of New York. They have married art and economics. Now take a look at Arlington. Arlington is the home for internet, and they have had so many investments today. Sheer innovation, they're moving more and more towards the next generation technologies. Now take a look at Oulu in Finland. Oulu was known for Nokia, but when Nokia went down, the local community innovated and surprisingly kept the economic vitality up. So there's so much that's happening in terms of collaboration in smaller communities and put together that can actually create a smarter city. This is very important, my friends. In fact, the maker space of Ohio Columbus is again one more intelligent community. So parallelly this is happening, which might again be a trigger for better smart cities. There are, of course, newer solutions that I'm sure as we go along, Mr. Shankar Agarwal is going to talk about the governance challenge that most of the cities around the world faced. Now we are moving towards open and transparent governance system where you have open data infrastructure, you have visualization and dashboards for a city, you have sentiment analysis tools, which we ourselves have developed. We have simulation and gaming, citizen engagement, and integrated management. So from the government perspective. From the financing, the new models of financing, green bonds, I'm sure again my next speaker is going to talk about it. Fantastic transition from what it was to what it's going to be. There are a couple of examples on how the cities have funded themselves, and very interesting funding models are available that India can explore and utilize. There's different business models like, cloud-based, as-you-pay, go models, like how SaaS, etc. are evolving. And the final slides, my friends, is globally there's a strong understanding that smart cities is not possible unless all constituents come together and work. This is very, very important. It might look like a prosaic statement, but this is very, very important. Just again, Amsterdam perhaps gives all the information that we want. They have formed a groups of businesses, knowledge institutions, governments came together in the form of a triple helix and then started really moving towards the smart cities. So all the barriers to smart city developments that we saw earlier, like inertia, lack of clarity, consensus, vision, lack of vision, funding, everything is now being cleared systematically and very brilliantly. So I'm hopeful now. I think the smart cities are here to stay, and all the constituents have learned to play the game very well. And just on closing, I'd like to say that the smart city has caught the imagination of people as well. Everybody is tweeting about it, and our sentiment analysis tool also talks about how much people are involved about creating a smart city, how excited they are. Well, thank you very much.